Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another episode of 6 of the Best, where I choose 6 of my favourite performances / films from an actor. And today we're going to talk about one of the criminally underrated character actors, in my opinion, all the way from Canada, and that is Elias Koteas, whose main body of work that he's famous for is probably the 90s. And in fact all 6 of these films are from the 90s, but he still regularly pops up. Again, an actor very much like Christopher Walken, who I did my last 6 of the Best on, that perhaps doesn't get too many leading man roles, but he's always interesting in what he does, even if he's in films for a small amount of time. So he's from Canada, as I said. So the first film, or the first 2 films, are by a Canadian director, one of the most interesting directors as far as career paths, and a director that I am hoping to do a series on, and that is Atamagoyan. And this is 1991's The Adjuster, which I absolutely adore. I think it is one of the best North American films of the 90s, and Elias Koteas gets to play the leading man here. But as with most Agoyan films, it's an ensemble piece with some Agoyan regulars. This is a story about a loss adjuster. It's better than it sounds, honest. It's about a loss adjuster who assesses the damage after fires, and talks to families about their possessions and what they were worth. It's just an absolutely beautiful film about basically what your life is worth. There's also another thread with Maury Shaken, who plays the husband of basically an nymphomaniac, another Atamagoyan regular who would appear as the bus driver in The Sweet Hereafter. And Shaken basically gives her all these scenarios, from him dressing up as a tramp and fondling her on the subway, to arranging for I assume a high school football team to have some fun with her, and this kind of comes to a climax, if you'll pardon the pun, when Maury Shaken, under the guise of making or being a film producer, rents out at Elias Koteas' family's house to shoot a film in, while they go to the rented, or a motel, and that motel is where Elias Koteas puts up his customers, which he sometimes gets personally involved with. You also have Agoyan's wife, Arsenia Kahanajan, who once again has been in lots of his films, as Koteas' wife, who works as a censor, but has a unique way of showing her mother, who doesn't speak English, what she does for work. It's just a beautifully made film. Again, music by Michael Dana, who has done the music for a few Atamagoyan films. For me, it's one of his masterpieces. It's just so pristine and dreamy, with a wonderful final image. What that final image is about is anybody's guess, but it's just wonderful. Great performances, certainly by Koteas, as he's trying to grasp the value of his own life, and Maury Shaken, who's always wonderful Again, he's in The Sweet Hereafter as well. Just absolutely tremendous. And then another Agoyan film, and this one's from 1994, Exotica, which is the Criterion Region A. It's by number 1150. I love this film as well. This was on Moviedrome with Mark Cousins, not Alex Cox. This was one of the later ones with Mark Cousins. Set in a strip club, and this is Koteas as supporting actor, and Bruce Greenwood, I guess, would be the kind of leading man, but again, it's multi-stranded and has an ensemble cast. Koteas, when we first meet him, is a kind of slimy DJ who plays songs, strange enough, as DJs do, in the strip club. But through flashbacks, we do kind of see that he's perhaps a little bit more rounded than as he's introduced to us at the start of the film. Again, it's another wonderful Agoyan, dreamy, trance-like film about the past and the present, about trauma, and how we deal with that. Bruce Greenwood, again, who's almost as underrated as Elias Koteas, gives a wonderful performance. He'll probably appear in The Six of the Best at some point. And Sarah Polley gives a good early performance. Again, she would be in The Sweet Hereafter as well. It's just a wonderful Agoyan film. But The Adjuster and Exotica are two great Koteas performances in great Agoyan films, in my opinion. Next is something completely different. This is also from 1994. This is The Prophecy, or Angeles and Demonios. This is a Spanish Blu-ray, in case you hadn't guessed. And again, this is Koteas in a rare chance to be a leading man, even though the supporting cast pretty much overwhelms him, because the supporting cast is Christopher Walken as the Angel of Death. Gabriel, I've mentioned that before, it's such a wonderful performance. That Walken makes you feel sorry for the Angel of Death. But Koteas plays a cop who was trying to become a priest, and he kind of lost his faith due to apocalyptic visions, and he gets involved with a battle for a very nasty soul between the good angels and bad angels. It's complete hokum, complete nonsense, but it's also absolutely wonderful. Lots of quotable dialogue, mostly by Christopher Walken. But Koteas is there, essentially playing the straight man, questioning his faith and why he lost his faith, and trying to keep the film on the straight and narrow while Walken does Walken things. Virginia Madsen's in the film, Eric Stoltz is in the film, Amanda Plummer, and also Viggo Mortensen as Satan, bearded Satan, and he gives a wonderful turn as well. His confrontations with Koteas initially and then with Walken are so good. So it's a load of nonsense, but by jingo, it's really enjoyable nonsense, and Koteas does his best to hold his own, while Walken and Mortensen probably steal the film. And then, as I said, he's Canadian, and if you're going to work with Agoyan, you might as well work with Cronenberg as well, who's the best Canadian director of all time. I don't think that's too much of a stretch. In 1996, Crash, or 1997 Crash, I'm sure it's 96. I'm sure somebody will correct me, not naming names. Koteas also has this reputation perhaps as playing slightly odd characters, and he dives head first into the car wreck that is Crash, playing somebody who's obviously rather obsessed with crashes, reenacts crashes, famous crashes, and obsesses over wounds and scars. It's just a wonderful performance in another great film of the 90s. This is a lovely German media book. We all remember this scene where Deborah Unger asks James Spader what Elias Koteas is like and what his body fluids are like. Wonderful film, wonderful performance by Koteas. Next is a film where again he kind of goes back to being support, but he gives a really good turn. This is Fallen with Denzel Washington. Probably my second favourite Denzel Washington film behind Devil in a Blue Dress. Again, very much like The Prophecy, this is complete nonsense, complete hokum, about a demon who possesses Elias Koteas, who is a serial killer who's getting the chair, and then the spirit basically hops from body to body and tortures and drives Denzel Washington round the twist as a cop trying to investigate the murders. Again, complete nonsense, but I do love the colour palette of the film. John Goodman's really good in support, Donald Sutherland, James Gandolfini, and Koteas plays a really good serial killer. He's got charm, but he's also got that nastiness, obviously, and really makes the most out of the short time he's on the film. But we see him on videotape when Washington is trying to figure out what language he's speaking in and what he's doing with his hands. So again, it's a short performance, but it's a memorable one, and again a film that it's not going to be to everybody's taste because it is nonsense, but again, if you do nonsense really well, it can be so enjoyable. And then finally, Terrence Malick's Thin Red Line, and again this has a cast of so many names, but for me there's two actors that really stand out, and they're not the quote-unquote leads, which is probably Jim Caviezel and Sean Penn to some extent, but Elias Koteas and Nick Nolte are both absolutely terrific. I mean, everybody's terrific in the film, but Koteas, who I think is a lawyer or was a lawyer before he went into the army or the Marines, and isn't really a fan of the war, strangely enough, whereas Nick Nolte is a career soldier, even though he's getting a bit older and kind of wants it and needs it. Koteas does not, and Nolte's kind of dislike for him, but Koteas is trying to protect his men and trying not to get people killed. It's just such a humane performance by Koteas, such a subtle performance. Again, he's never really an actor who does big things on screen. He's much more a nuanced actor, apart from obviously the roles where he does big things. His early performance in Some Kind of Wonderful as a thug is really enjoyable, but in Thin Red Line he's just classy and humane and quite fantastic, and again another masterpiece of the 90s. So I mean, Elias Koteas is so underrated, and again doesn't really get a chance to play big roles particularly, but just another wonderful character actor. So please let me know what your favourite Elias Koteas performances or films are, and hopefully you'll join me again for more 6 of the best, because this could go on and go on and go on. So this is Sol Sharon from Sol Sharon Films saying thanks so much for watching. I look forward to your comments, and farewell.